So I got to do a little bit of cleanup here. I'm going to bring my laptop. Michael says something very, very, very important. It was around the hardest work isn't coding, it's the idea and the design. And today, my goal is really to show you, to prove that to you. And I have to log in. Everything seems to be fine. That's perfect. Bring my mouse. Okay. So if you can switch to my screen, and I can start my presentation. Perfect. Thanks for being here. So I'm the one thing that keeps you from going to lunch. So I'm going to try to make it as interesting as possible at being a good appetizer. So I'm Marc Reguera. I've been 21 years at Microsoft, all in finance. What I've done for most of my career is copy and paste. Run query, put it in Excel, build the graph, copy and paste in PowerPoint. 3 years ago, that changed completely with self-service BI. This is truly a revolution, because what Michael said, and I want to make sure I code it right, the hardest work isn't coding, it's the idea and design. I used to have a technical challenge, and I was limited by my technical capabilities. No more. Today, I'm going to build touch-enabled interactive views out of the box from data sources, from things, and I got to make sure, from things that that's very true. See, I had so many things to do. Thank you for reminding me. There we go. And so I'm going to build things out of the box without showing you I basically have no technical skills. So I've worked in finance, but I want to talk to you a little bit about my dreams and passion. My dream was not to be a finance guy. My dream was to be a soccer professional. I grew up in France. And when I was a kid, I played for the U15 of Paris Saint-Germain. That was like at least 30 kilos ago, a long time ago. This is important because the reason why I'm very grateful for Qatar is for Paris Saint-Germain's investment and for Zlatan and all of that. So Paris Saint-Germain is in my heart. I wanted to be a soccer professional. I wasn't good enough. My dad was very smart. My dad said, you can only play if you have good grades. So when that plan A didn't work, I went into finance. So, aside from my family and friends, my first passion is football. My second passion is data visualization. In that order, football first. It seems strange, but as I did my career in finance, I was the CFO of all the call centers, I realized that with visuals, I can explain peaks and valleys, and I can see things that were amazing. And I was very grateful to be part now of a project with Real Madrid, when I'm building the BI for Real Madrid. This is me presenting at the stadium in Santiago Bernabeu on November 16, when Microsoft agreed to the partnership with Real Madrid. So I have the dream job. I'm building BI for Real Madrid. It will never get as good as this. It's amazing. Well, and so, have you guys heard of Real Madrid? You guys know who Real Madrid is? Yes? So I'm going to show off a little bit. Please forgive me, but I have to because, you know, this is not Photoshop. This is Cristiano, Ancelotti, James, and then one of my favorites, Zinedine Zidane, who is amazing. So, I'm going to now, since you guys are organizing the World Cup, and we're talking a little bit about soccer, let's analyze a little bit of the history of the World Cup. So, I'm going to do a little bit of an overview. This is Excel 2013, and I will show you what's behind all of this. But I built all of this. I have no SQL, I have no VB skills, I have zero technical skills. It's a design challenge. It's not a technical challenge. It's what to show and how to show. So this is an overview. So the World Cup is around 64 games. You score around 150 to 160 goals. And there is an average of 50,000 people that goes to the game. Around 50 games, 2.5 million. That's why a lot of your stadiums are going to be around 50,000 because that's usually the average. As you can see, the goal per game has gone down. Except the last World Cup, it went up to 2.6, and we'll look at this a little bit better. Now, this is where the World Cup took place. The size of the bubble is the game. So if you click on France, you're going to be able to see they organized the World Cup twice, in 38 and 98 when they won, and you can see the different locations. Now, let's do this a little bit bigger. Now, I was wondering, why are we going to do the World Cup in where we're going to do? So the next two World Cup, they're going to be in places where there's a big gap. We have always done it in South America and Europe and in Asia. I think it makes a lot of sense to do one in Russia and Qatar because if you look at the history, there's a big space in the middle. And I think it makes sense that the World Cup should be done around the world, not just in South America or in Europe. So from a pure geographical perspective, it makes a lot of sense. Now, you've seen the average goals per game going down. Let's try to understand why it goes down. So I look at the distribution of game historically. If you look at the distribution of game where you have 0 goals, there were no 0-0 until 1958, and there is around 10% that have 0 zeros. The reason why the average goals per game went up is because the 2-goal games, actually percentage went down. We used to have 20-30%. Now it was only 13%, and we had a big increase in 3 goals per game in Brazil at the last World Cup. So to look a bit about the performance of the team, I built a bit of these moving bubbles. On the bottom axis is cumulative goal differences. So if you go 2-1, it's +1, 3-1, +2. And here it's cumulative points, which is 1 point for victory, 0 for tie, and -1 for loss. I wanted to differentiate. We can look at the history now of the World Cup. And what we're going to do, we're going to play this, and we're going to do, 1934, 38. Then Pelé arrives in 58. Brazil takes over up to 1970, and then Germany in 74 is going to win the World Cup, Argentina in 78, then we have Spain, and then we have France does 2002, Brazil wins again, and then the last World Cup, Brazil did poorly, and Germany got closer. If you want to look at the top teams, if you want to know which ones are going to do well, chances are that in the top 4, you'll have 2 or 3 of the 4 teams, which is Brazil, Germany, Italy, or Argentina, and you have usually Netherlands, France, or Spain. Netherlands is the team that has always done well at the World Cup and never won it. Somebody said once, football is a simple game, 22 men chase a ball for 90 minutes, and at the end, the Germans always win. Gary Lineker. So I wanted to test that. So I basically built a little bit of a history of the World Cup, and we can look at Brazil. So this is the history of Brazil at the World Cup. So here in the last World Cup, they got only 1 point. And you can click on here and you can see the 1 point they have. They won the first game, but then they tied. They won again, but then they lost the last 2. So only 1 point. If you look at Germany, they do consistently very, very well. The Germans do always very well, except when they play Italy. They have never, ever, ever beaten Italy. So luckily for them, Italy was a disaster this year, and they didn't have to play with him. But it's the only team that they have never played. So here you can interact and see the history of any team just in Excel. You can see France, who won the World Cup in '98, and it's very easy to do. So what I'm showing you here are things that any of you can do. And I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview. We talk a lot about big data, but people don't want data. People want information. The process of converting data to information has been very painful up to 2-3 years ago. I basically spent 18 years as a finance guy fighting with IT because I had business leaders who want data. I go to IT who needs time and money. I get something. It's not exactly what I want. I go back and I keep going back and forth. Now IT takes care of the most important with BI, which is data. There's no BI without good data. The technology has broken the wall and enabled technical dummies like me to build amazing view and convert data to information very, very, very easily. And so, what is all this technology? I'm going to show you a little bit. So, the top part, a lot of this is in Excel. You can get that on the internet with Power Query. You can then build your data model in Excel with Power Pivot. Power Pivot is like Access in Excel. It's like SQL in Excel for technical dummies. I can build my data model in Excel and visualize in Power View or Power Map, 2 or 3 dimensions, which I'm going to show you, or I can load it in SharePoint with SQL or go to a tabular model. All of this is on-premise, or I can bring it in the cloud and use natural language. So I can talk about this. Why don't I show you and build an overview of the Qatar economy, because I wanted to understand Qatar before I studied the World Cup. So what I'm going to do is show you how I got data from the World Bank for Qatar, build a view, and learn about Qatar. In a couple of days this weekend, I was at the W Hotel, and that's what I did for 2 days. And I'm going to show you a little bit of what I did. The first thing I did is that I wanted to know more about Qatar, So what I did, I studied. This has 286 pages. Qatar National 2030, it is a very comprehensive document that talks about the investments you're going to have in healthcare. So before you start anything, you have to understand the subject. I educated myself. The next thing I did is that I decided to basically go and get data to validate that. So I went to the World Bank. This is the World Bank, and there's a place where you can get data. So we're going to go get data. And let's say we're going to get GDP data maybe in the constant base to 2005. I'm going to go there, and this is data, and it says download the data. I left-click on that. Let's see. And then right-click on the shortcut. I'm going to open Excel, just a blank page, and in Excel I have Power Query. From the web, I'm going to copy and paste this link. When I click this, I'm basically building a permanent connection to that database. So in 3 weeks, if the data changes and I need to refresh, I'm going to be able to have that, I will have that permanent connection. So it's going to bring me the API from the World Bank. This is very important. It's not a one-time thing. You are building a permanent connection to a public database. By the way, from Power Query, you can connect to anything you want, to an Access database, to things we don't recommend like Oracle, but we forgive you. You can connect to that. You can go anything. That's the way we're a platform that connects to any data source. I go to my data. This is my data in Power Query. Now, I have some problems. I need to bring this up a few rows. Anything I do here, I'm actually building a macro without knowing it. So every time I refresh here, it's going to do that automatically. Now, I have some problems. First of all, I have all the years as columns. That's a nightmare because if I want to do time series, I want one column that says year and all the years as row. That's not a problem. I hit the columns, I do transform and unpivot. It created one row. For those of you who deal with data, you know how amazing that is. And this is in text format, change type to decimal. I'm done. In 2 minutes, I build a permanent connection, but more importantly, I build some steps to cleanse the data and shape it the way I want. Now I'm bringing it into Excel, and now I have 9,766 rows ready to be done. So they are here. I can add this to my data model in Power Pivot and mash it up with the other data. So here I already brought a lot of other data fields, but when I go in diagram view, you're going to see my data model, because I brought a lot of other tables. It should look like a spaghetti bowl, I think. There we go. So here I brought all the tables, and I connected it by year and country. So I brought a lot of tables about GDP, healthcare, and I joined it by year and by country very easily. Now, I can connect this. By the way, this is Power Pivot. You can connect this, again, anything you want. I'm showing you to a public data source. It can be SAP, Oracle, IBM, whatever you want. Now I have this data in Excel. Well, I can do a Power View. And in Excel, now I'm building my Power View sheet. I'm going to create a view from my data sources that is going to be able to see, for example, you guys have pretty cheap gas, I think, in Qatar compared to other places. So let's see the price of gasoline. I can bring the gasoline price. I can pick maybe a certain year for that. So gasoline prices. I'm going to pick maybe the year, maybe in 2012. I can pick the country name. And then I can pick a few bars. And I can see super easily the distribution. And this is Power View. So remember, I got the data. It's pretty good. Huh? It's 27 cents per gallon. That's pretty cheap compared to the rest of the world. So basically, I build a lot of views in Power View that you can consume in Excel. So if I go back and show you some of the views I built, one thing I've learned in Qatar is that you have a lot of very low percentage of male versus female, 23%, and you can see the gender trend. So I build a lot of Power Views for that, which I can consume in Excel, I can load in SharePoint, and I can consume in SharePoint. Now, this is great because, by the way, this is interactive, dynamic. You want to know more about the Qatar economy? We can do this. We're going to go back, and we can see on the bottom, this is GDP. On this side is GDP per capita, and the size of the bubble is the population. So we are in 2001, and we can see that Qatar is growing the GDP per capita 1690, going down the financial crisis, and then we go back up close to over 90K and 200 billion. That's very easy to do. So this is great. We have got data from a public website with Power Query, mash it up with Power Pivot, consume it in Excel with Power View. But now we can load it in the cloud and be able to consume it through Power BI. This is amazing. It's called Power BI in the cloud. All I did is load my workbook that I show you in here, and then I can have a dashboard with pictures that reference that workbook. So we were looking, I think, at the price per gasoline, right? Let's see if I can find the picture I have. I don't know if I have it here, but if I click on GDP per capita, that's going to take me to a view. And and here you have the GDP per year, which is going to 200 billion, population 2 million, GDP per capita close to 100K. I can go back, I can study, I can see what we did, the GDP per capita, and by population, we can see that Qatar is here, right above Kuwait. So we can interact with all of this, and with all the charts, we can see the air passengers. So you guys have had a huge increase in traffic. We have maps. So we can see that in Qatar, we have around 18 million air passengers a year. You only used to have 5 million 4 million in 2004. So all of this is just me over the weekend getting data. But what's amazing here is that you can ask questions against your data. So here there is a little box, and we're going to make this a bit bigger. So zoom maybe to 150%. Maybe not. Well, we'll see if this is too big. Maybe I'll go to 100%, to 125, because I want to see that you see what I write. So maybe 100%. Sorry for that. Okay. So if I do sum of GDP by year as line chart for Qatar, which country you want to compare Qatar to? Any country in the world. Maybe versus UAE, versus United, I have to know how to tap, Arab Emirates. And it's spinning a little bit, but there we go. Okay, they're a bit bigger, but why don't we do GDP per capita? Because that's what matters, right? If we do GDP per capita, it's a different story. You guys have the blue line, you passed them in 2005 here, and now you're above. This is basically, now if you say, Mark, this is a chart I want to see every month, let's pin it on the dashboard. I pin it, and now I can go back, and every month, it's somewhere here. If I scroll, yeah, there we go, GDP per capita. I click, and I'm going to see that chart because I love it. So you can now create your chart right off the bat. By the way, I created one for Real Madrid because, I'm a fanatic of Real Madrid, so I had to create one for my team. And this is basically the dashboard, and I have a dashboard for Ronaldo. So I can see the goals he scores and how he's doing and what is his performance, because he's scoring a lot of goals. So here you have the games he's played, the goals. So with my finger, I'm going to put my finger in Manchester United, the yellow, and I'm going to drag it. So I take my finger, drag it down, and then it's going to just show me Manchester United, then Real Madrid, then Portugal. So these are the total goals. Let's change that. Let's do maybe, instead of the total goals, why don't we do goals per game instead? So if we take goals and change this to goals per game, we're going to see the average goals per game. I don't like these bars. I can change that to a line. So all you have to do, you have all these options that are at your fingertips. And if you are done with this, we can make this smaller. And it's very hard to see like this. So what we can do is just do a summary by taking Real Madrid, dragging it here, and it's going to give us an average of the line. So Cristiano Ronaldo at Real Madrid, he scored over 1 goal per game, which is much higher than Man U in Portugal, which was under 0.5. So this, in really minutes, you can see things. By the way, I did do you guys watch El Clásico, Real Madrid, Barcelona? I did some of total passes by player's name. So there was 1,015 passes between the game Real Madrid, Barcelona. And we're going to see Dani Alves, Andres Iniesta. Well, you can go and see a lot more about that if you go and explore by player. So all of this, you can see, maybe not, this is not a good summary, but you can see what you can do with the bubbles and all of that. So I talk about Qatar and I talk about the history of the World Cup. Why don't I talk about the World Cup in Qatar? Because that's what's going to happen. So what happens is that I went to Excel and I look at where the stadiums you're going to build, the latitude and longitude, the biggest towers, and your subway, where the train stations are going to be. I wanted to see geographically. And I did what we call a power map. So power map is in Excel 2013. You just put latitude and longitude and the height, and you can see geographically in 3 dimensions. So Power Query, you get that on the internet. Power Pivot, you mash it up. Power View, 2 dimension. Power Map, 3 dimension. This is what we do. And you can build little views, and now you can tell a story. Are you ready? So let's tell a story. Excel. I think the world is going to know where Qatar is on the map. So if you scroll down, I put the stadium location. If you zoom in, you're going to see, and the red is where the biggest stadium here, and I show by bars, the biggest, they're all 50,000 except the big one. I forgot the name, it's a national stadium. So I wanted to zoom in and see where the stadiums are going to be. So here we have this beautiful STEM education stadium. This is Excel. Then beautiful design. Then this is going to be the big stadium, the Khalifa Stadium. I think it's going to be 60, 70,000. And then you have a little bit on the south. You have the Al Wakra. Again, your stadiums are amazing. I'm so excited to see them. The architectural innovation is amazing. And then on the north, we have the Al Bayt Stadium. Again, beautiful, beautiful stadium. So I wanted to see, well, you're going to have a lot of people coming. How about hotels? These are the existing hotel rooms in purple, and in orange is where you're going to build additional room. Basically, downtown and in the Pearl. This is where you're going to build most of your hotel room. And then I read you're going to build a subway. So I wanted to see where the lines were. That's the goal line. Okay, well, can we put the stadium to see where well, the goal line is going to take you to the big, I think that's the Khalifa Stadium, and you see all the other stadiums around. How about the green line? So the green line is going to go from downtown Doha. It's going to take you to a lot of stadiums all the way to the sports club here, and then there's another stadium on the way. And then there's another line that is the red line. And all the red line, it goes from the airport all the way north to the Pearl, and that's going to take you to the Al Wakra Stadium and then to the other stadium around. This is just me taking latitude, longitude, and put it in Excel. By the way, these are the tallest building in Dubai. So if you want to explore this, we can, with my finger here, we can zoom in, we can play with it, and we can explore all of this very easily. So if I go here like this, I can go and see the actual tower, and with my finger I can zoom in. This is hard to see like that, so we're going to change this to maybe a theme like that, and maybe we can make this a bit smaller, but you can see all the towers downtown and where they are located. This is, again, super, 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 super easy. So I just want to make sure that I summarize. Power Query, you can get any data from any source. You build your data model, it could be in SQL, in Power Pivot, and again, keep in mind, you get data from any source. You mash it up, you consume it in Excel, in SharePoint if you want, or through a tabular model with hundreds of millions of records. You pick and choose the security and the scale. Or you can bring it in the cloud and do natural language. All of this is all pretty much new in the last few years. So I hope you got a good idea of the kind of things you can do with the data. It is truly, truly, truly revolutionary. I'm not exaggerating. I've been at Microsoft for 21 years. I had marginal improvement in my productivity in the last 2 years, in the first 18 years, but in the last 2 years, it's truly revolutionary. We can liberate the data by enabling people like me who have no technical skills to really do things that are amazing. Everything I show you today, everything is things that I build without really knowing any coding, doing any development. And so, like Michael said earlier, and I want to make sure I quote him well, the hardest work isn't coding. It's the idea on the design. It's not a technical challenge. It is very, very hard to make things simple without making it simplistic. It's very hard. But if it's what to show and how to show, you are not limited by your technical skills. A lot of the demos that I show are on YouTube. If you search my name, Marc Reguera, I'm on LinkedIn. I have 2 passions in life, besides family and friends. Soccer, football, and data visualization. So if you want to talk about one or the other, feel free to ping me. I can spend hours talking about football or data visualization. So I hope this was a good use of your time. And I want to bring back our fearless leader to wrap it up. Thank you. Thank you for your time.